Okay, so for today's talk, I might as well get this out of the way first of all, because last night the questions were quite long, and somebody asked me just to tell one of the stories about the good, bad, who knows. They call it a joke, but this is not a joke, this is deep. This is very, very important and powerful teaching. And so it is a story a long time ago, where there was one of these kings who loved going hunting. He wasn't a Buddhist, obviously, because Buddhists are kind to animals. And so he used to go hunting. And one day he was off hunting with his entourage. So as well as himself, he'd have all his attendants and stuff like that. Sometimes, and I'm becoming a senior monk now, so I think it's about time I had an entourage when I come to Singapore. So that when I arrive, I can take my personal hairdresser and my bodyguard, my tea maker. Would that be a good idea? No, maybe not. But anyway, this was a king, not a monk. And this king had his entourage with him. And as he was hunting, he cut his finger. And so immediately, part of his entourage was his personal doctor. Fortunately, he had a much better doctor than Michael Jackson. So he called the doctor and he said, "No, how is this?" And the doctor said, "Well, good, bad, who knows? I'll just put a Band-Aid on it. Look at it when we get back to the palace." So he just put a Band-Aid on the wound. And so the king went off hunting and enjoying himself. And because he didn't really look after it, by the time he got to the palace, the wound was infected. So the king called the doctor over and said, "Look at this." He said, "Oh my goodness." So he took the Band-Aid off, put a bit of ointment on it, cleaned it up, and put a bandage on it. And the king said again, "Is it going to be okay?" What did the doctor say? Good, bad, who knows? That wasn't very reassuring. I mean, if you go to see your doctor and you get sort of some biopsy result, you've got a cancer, what's it like, doctor? Good, bad, who knows? That's not going to be very reassuring. But nevertheless, that's what the doctor said. So the king went on about his business, and 3 days later, it was so bad, it went black, it had to be amputated. So, the doctor had to amputate the king's finger. And of course, the king was not amused. He was so upset, he threw that stupid doctor into prison. He actually threw him in this jail cell himself. And as soon as he put him in the cell, he said to the doctor, "Okay, what do you think about that, doctor?" You know what the doctor said? Good, bad, who knows? And the king thought, that's a very crazy, stupid doctor, and just went away. Now, a week or two later, when the wound was healed enough, off the king went hunting again, because he really enjoyed it. That was his sport. And as he was following some sort of animal in the forest, riding his horse, he got separated from the rest of the party and got totally lost in the middle of the jungle. And riding around in the middle of the jungle, he got captured by the forest people. Totally outnumbered, they captured him. And they dragged him to their village. And it did happen that day was a holy day. And they wanted to do a sacrifice. And they thought, the gods have delivered a sacrifice for them, a human sacrifice, a king. Wow, that would really please their gods. So they took him into the sacrificial post in the middle of the jungle. And they did all their mumbo-jumbo chanting. And the priest was about to slit the king's throat when he said, "Stop! I've just noticed the king has only got 9 fingers. He's not perfect. So we can't sacrifice such an imperfect specimen to our God. Just like you'd only give me the most perfect of food, I hope." So, he's not perfect enough. He's missing a finger. So they let him go. He wasn't good enough to be sacrificed. And as the king walked back through the forest towards his palace, he realized losing a finger had saved his life. And so he realized that that doctor was not stupid after all, was incredibly wise. When you lose a finger, you may think it's bad. Maybe it's good. Good, bad, who knows? You don't know what's going to happen. So as soon as he got back to the palace, he went straight to the prison cell and released the doctor and apologized to him. I'm so sorry putting you in jail for a few weeks. That was a terrible thing I did. I never really understood when you said all this good, bad, who knows. So please forgive me for doing a bad thing to you. And the doctor said, what do you mean, a bad thing? He said, it was a good thing you put me in prison. Why? Said the king. Because if you hadn't put me in prison, I would be out on the hunt with you. I'd have been captured, and I've got my 10 fingers. So the moral of that story is, doesn't matter what happens to you, good, bad, who knows? So you get dumped by your boyfriend. Is that bad? Good, bad, who knows? Actually, it's usually pretty good. You lose all your money on the stock market. Good, bad, who knows? You get killed in a car crash. Is that good or bad or who knows? It's actually pretty good. You don't have to go to an old people's home. You don't get Alzheimer's. You don't get cancers. It's quick, efficient. I know people in Singapore like, quick, efficient. No messing. Good, bad, who knows? So, how's your meditation been so far? Good, bad, who knows? So what that really does, that neighbor who's making such a noise all night, is that good? Is that bad? It may be that your noisy neighbor is keeping away the ghost. Which would you prefer? The ghost coming to haunt you in the middle of the night or the noisy neighbor? So whoever asked that question last night, I'll say, thank you, noisy neighbor. Thank you, I thought it was a bad thing that you made all that noise last night, but actually you kept away the ghost. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So the purpose of that story, it means it stops you being so critical and also so negative. Because things happen to us and think, oh, it's terrible. I've lost my contract. I've lost my partner. I may have lost my ability to come to the temple again. I don't know what's happened to you, but you must always remember, good, bad, who knows? And then you don't get angry, you don't get depressed. You just keep walking forward and see what happens. Last time I told this story, over in Singapore, I mentioned that when I was about 19 years of age, I fell in love. But my girlfriend dumped me. Oh, I was so sad. At the time, I thought that was very bad. Now I know, very good. I should have remembered that story. Good, bad, who knows? If she hadn't dumped me, I would have never become a monk. So if ever we find her, all you people who enjoy my teachings, you should thank her. Oh, thank you so much for dumping Ajahn Brahm. Otherwise, he would never be our teacher. Anyway, so that's good, bad, who knows? And what that really does, it keeps this positive state of mind. So you're not judging. So how's your meditation been so far? Good, bad, who knows? So don't even judge it. You sit here, and this is good enough. So if it is difficult, we say that's a person who's developing lots of wisdom. When you struggle a lot with your meditation, you're going to be one of the wise ones. And you'll be so compassionate. When someone else comes to tell you how difficult it was, you say, yes, I know how you feel. So all of you whose meditation is really hopeless and you've got a very stupid mind and you've done nothing so far in all the years I've taught you, you're going to be the compassionate one. I say this because there was one occasion when I was a school teacher, and I always remember this story. In my class of 30 children, when it got to the end of the year, I had to pass out the report cards. There was one child who came bottom. This boy who came 30th out of a class of 30. Someone has to come 30th. Someone, even if they're all geniuses, all Einstein, still one will have to come 30th. But when he opened his report and found out he'd come bottom of the class, I looked at his face, and his jaw dropped, his shoulders drooped. He was so depressed. And I didn't need to read his mind to be able to know what he was thinking. What am I going to do when my parents see this? Oh, they're going to take away all my pocket money and my privileges. They're going to give me a hard time. They're going to lock me in my room with my books, make all sorts of threats if I don't do better next year. Oh, my life is in ruins. He looked really depressed. And I am a compassionate monk. If I see anyone depressed like that, I can't walk by and leave them alone to suffer. You've got to help them. So I walked up to him, and they knew I was a Buddhist. And so I started teaching him some Buddhism. I said, in Buddhism, we respect and worship something we call the Bodhisattva. And a Bodhisattva is a person who sacrifices their own happiness for the sake of other beings. They don't think about themselves, they think about others and how they can make other people happy and relieve all their suffering. And I said, that's what you have done. You deliberately took the worst position in the class this year, so none of your friends have to suffer what your parents are going to say to you tonight. None of your friends and colleagues have to be so depressed about coming bottom. You are not selfish like all these other kids who want to come top or in the middle somewhere, just thinking about themselves. You sacrificed yourself for the sake of others. You are this year's Bodhisattva. I give you the Bodhisattva prize for coming bottom. And when I said that, he looked at me as if I was crazy. Which was close to the truth. But at least he laughed. I got him out of his depression. And hopefully, I actually taught him a lesson. But I also said before I left him, said, okay, this year you get the Bodhisattva prize, but you're only allowed once a year. So next year, let someone else take the Bodhisattva prize. So of all the people on this retreat, who's going to get the Bodhisattva prize on this retreat? The worst, most hopeless meditator. And you do that so no one else feels embarrassed. So that's very kind and compassionate of you. No, not to try to become enlightened, not to try to become peaceful. Out of compassion for all your friends and colleagues, so they don't get so embarrassed at the end of the retreat when you start speaking about how you've done. And you say, I was the very, very worst meditating this whole retreat. You say that to make all your friends feel better. You are the Bodhisattva, and I'll give you the Bodhisattva prize at the end of the retreat. So get out of this materialist idea, the spiritual materialism, trying to get things. And instead you can see you can have fun, you can be at peace, you can be happy. And then you find all these amazing things of meditation, they just happen to you. Now the serious part of this talk is actually what actually happens when you let go. If you really are letting go, not judging, not sort of trying to sort of out of conceit beat your world record of do a personal best in meditation, which some of you are trying to do. Instead, if you just relax and take it easy and be still, be content, what happens? And this gives you a very deep understanding of what meditation is, what its goal is. So then you know what you should be doing, or rather what you should not be doing. And I mentioned it yesterday, that's why I wanted to elaborate on it today. Remember that simile I said of the emperor and the 5 pieces of clothing? And so we don't really know what this emperor is, this chitta, this mind. Because we don't know what it is, it always confuses us. We wonder why it gets angry, why it can't be peaceful, why it can't have happiness, why it always goes wrong. This emperor, this is the person, the being or the thing responsible. So let's find out what it is. And the only way to do that is to somehow find a way of letting the five senses and the whole world outside, that's the world of the five senses outside, to let that go so you can go inside, into the mind, into the emperor, so you can see who you really are, or rather, what you really are. And that's the job of meditation. It is not the job of thinking. The job of thinking is to drive you crazy. The job of meditation is to give you wisdom. So, in order to let go of the five senses, is something which you will all know, that the brain can only notice things which change, things which are always there, which are always common, like the hum of the traffic in the distance. Feelings in your body, maybe you come in here, you feel cold, you feel hot, but after a while you can't feel that temperature at all because it doesn't change. And there's always sound, but we can only notice the sound which moves. Just like once I went to this Zen monastery in the north of England. In those days, 1970-something, there were so few temples and monasteries. I'd go to any temple. I didn't care whether it was Mahayana, Theravada, Vajrayana. I only wish I'd have found a Mahayana temple, but there was no such temples in those days. They were always dead serious. But anyway, I went to this temple, and they did a meditation retreat, Zen style. I don't know if you've ever been to a Zen retreat, but that was where the teacher carried this big stick. And he walked out, you were facing the wall, and he walked behind you. And if you started nodding, he whacked you on the back with the stick. Whoa! The first morning we got up really early, and I was very sleepy. But I always had good luck. I'm a very good luck monk. I'm very fortunate. Things always seem to happen okay with me. It must be my good karma. And my good karma paid a lot of dividends that morning. Because the guy sitting next to me who got hit first. And as soon as he got whacked, I was so straight. I had no slot at all. It's amazing what fear can do to get your sleepiness away. But I also remember just watching the wall. And you're supposed to meditate with your eyes open in that Zen tradition. So you had your eyes open, watching the wall, and just watching it nice and peacefully. And then the wall disappeared. I thought, this is really weird. Now, I've always liked weird things. So I never get afraid when you see weird things. I thought, wow, this is interesting. I wonder what it is. So even as a monk, when I heard there was a ghost somewhere in a cave or in a forest, I wouldn't run away. I want to go and see one. Wouldn't you really like to see a ghost? Not a fantasy one, like a real one. Because then you can actually ask all these questions. There's all these questions you really would like to ask a ghost. You could actually do an interview and have it published in the Straits Times, or even better, in the New Yorker, an exclusive interview with a real ghost. Because number one, where do ghosts go during the day? They only seem to come out at night time. And do they go to sleep during the daytime, have a snooze? And do ghosts get married? Does a nice male ghost see a nice, beautiful female ghost and say, oh, just the way you go, ooh, it's so delightful. It's so charming. And if they do embrace and kiss, can they actually hold each other, or just when they try and kiss each other, they go through each other? Now, where do they live? Do they live in houses, or just live in the forest? Or where do they go at night? Do they have pets, like a pet ghost dog? Are there ghost animals as well? Ghost sheep, ghost dogs, ghost kangaroos? So it's really interesting. So if you really met a real ghost, you could do an in-depth interview with ghosts and have it published. You'd be world famous. The Scoop. on ghosts. So I was always interested in these things. So especially when I saw this wall disappeared, instead of getting afraid, I think I'm going crazy. Oh, this is really interesting. What's going on? And obviously you realize what was going on. It's nothing weird or strange. It's just the nature of the brain. You was watching a white wall, nothing was moving, nothing was changing. It would happen to everybody. It's just when nothing changes, it disappears. The brain realizes nothing really of interest there, and it switches off. That's all it does. And each one of you does something similar every time you close your eyes. Close your eyes now, and you'll see the back of your eyelids, black. You can open your eyes again. After a while, you can't see the eyelids anymore, because it's black, nothing is happening, it's not interesting. So the sense of sight turns off. That's actually how we turn off the five senses, by keeping them still, so nothing is happening. So that sense turns off. The switch goes. You know, it's really similar to your computers these days. If you have that screensaver on and you don't move the mouse or don't do anything, after a couple of minutes it just turns off. Nothing's going on. And that's how the brain works. So that's why in meditation we close our eyes. If you do keep your eyes open on a plain wall, it's much easier with your eyes closed. And you will notice after a few minutes your sense of sight turns off. We try to keep the other senses still as well, so there's no smells change, as long as a person doesn't pass wind. You know, that's why we always have lots of incense in the temples. Do you understand where all these ceremonies come from? People asked me that a long time ago. You know, all these Buddhist ceremonies, now what meaning have they got? Why do you light incense in the temple? You know, to get rid of the bad smells of the people who come in, because, you know, in those days people didn't wash that much. Now, why don't we wear shoes in temples? Do you know the reason why people take off their shoes outside? So if the monk tells a bad joke, you don't throw something at the monk. Because that's a custom these days. They did that to George Bush. Actually, they did that to John Howard, in Australia. That's the custom. If you don't like somebody when they're giving a talk, you take your shoe and throw it off them. And that's why we don't allow shoes inside the temples. And you know you don't believe me, do you? I know the reason why. I always wondered about this. You go to these Mahayana temples in Singapore or in Hong Kong, and you see all the people, they take the incense and they shake it. You know why? It's because all the children were taken to the temples for the first time by their grandmas. They do that, don't they? Your grandma takes you to the temple, and your grandma is usually so old that she has Parkinson's disease. And so she does that just because she's got Parkinson's. And all the children, they see that, and they do the same. And they think that's what you're supposed to do in a Buddhist temple. See, now you know. Anyway, I'll be back to the serious stuff again. If I can manage it, be serious. Anyway, so your nose, no smells, so it turns off. It's not as if you're smelling anything. And taste as well. You've got the taste of saliva, but nothing else is happening. Because it's constant, it soon turns off. And your body, if you keep moving it, things are always happening. It means you can't allow the body to disappear. If you're sitting still, nothing is moving, and comfortable, so there's not pains, throbbing. You're comfortable, and after a while, the legs disappear. You can't feel them anymore. You can't feel the bottom. Can you feel the bottom on your seat right now? Now I tell you about it, you can feel that sensation. After a short while, it will disappear, because it doesn't change. So all of the feelings in the body disappear, except the one which is moving. You're breathing. Everything else is still, but you can't keep your breath still. Otherwise, you won't be breathing, and you'll die. and that would get me into big trouble. So you're breathing. So that's a difficult one, to become still, but we can do that. And the way it's done is like, oh, you see, that's Jimi Hendrix. Ooh, very good. Or was that the ghost? Because as soon as you talk about ghosts, they think they're talking about them, and they come in and say hello. But anyway, no, you don't have to. No ghosts are allowed in this monastery without my permission, so you're quite safe. Anyway, back to calming down. So the body becomes still. And the only thing which is left, the only thing which you can be aware of, is the only thing left moving, which is, your lungs, your breathing. And that's why the Buddha mentioned the breath meditation. When I meditate, I never these days decide to go and look for the breath. I just close my eyes, sight disappears, not sort of smelling or not tasting, trying to be in a quiet place so the sound disappears. Sitting absolutely still, but comfortable, so the body disappears. And after a while, there's nothing going on, except my breathing. So the breathing is actually all that's left. And that's why it's the object of awareness. I don't choose it, it's just the only thing left. So there's the breath going in, going out, going in, going out. But after a while, because you're relaxed, the breath becomes very smooth and even. And this is actually where you get to what I sometimes call the delightful breath. So easy, so still. And there's hardly any difference between the in-breath and the out-breath, between beginning and end. And that's a really important stage in the meditation. But because there's no difference anymore, there's nothing to watch. And the awareness of the breath disappears. It's important in meditation that it seems to be this is the only way you can really let go of the body, via the breath, because you have a very simple object, and when that goes, the whole of your body awareness is disappeared. Please don't be afraid. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, and you get very nice meditation. So you can't feel your body, no heat, no cold, no pain, can't even know the breath. So what's left? Just the mind, the sixth sense. Obviously, sound is a very difficult thing to let go of. I often think that why haven't we developed like ear lids? Because eyelids are okay. I can close my eyes when I don't want to see things. But ear lids, wouldn't it be wonderful? You can just close your ears. Actually, a lot of people have developed that, and they call them like husbands and wives. It's amazing. They say after about 70 years of marriage, this is one person told me this, they've developed the ability that their wife can speak to them and they just don't hear it. So it can be done. So you don't pay attention. If someone bangs the door, there's a quota, you don't pay attention. If you can do that with your husband or with your wife, because it goes both ways, if you can develop that skill in marriage, you can develop that skill in meditation. So you don't pay interest, and after a while the sound disappears, you just don't hear them. You know what it's like, Darling, I'm talking to you. Darling, darling. You just don't hear. It's true, Look, this is a couple of disciples here. They're Malaysian Chinese. And they came up to tell me one day, they were embarrassed, but I thought this is a great story. They were at home watching a movie. It must have been a great movie. Because once the movie was finished, one of them got up to go to the toilet, and the other one got up to make a cup of tea. And when they got up from the sofa, something's missing. In the shelves behind them, there were many items had vanished. And they checked in the bedrooms, and lots of stuff had been missing from there as well. A burglar had come into their house and actually stolen things from right behind the place they were sitting. There was a burglar stealing, and they were just watching the movie. What's going to happen next? And they didn't hear a thing. They weren't disturbed by the noise. And I said, if only you could do that when you were meditating. But they can't. It's like cough and you hear everything. Now, why is it that people can watch a movie and not hear any sound at all, even if it's right behind them, it's because you enjoy the movie, because it's fun. That's also why, to be able to let go of that sound, you have to start to have fun in the meditation. It's joyful, it's interesting, this is wonderful. You feel so nice, peaceful, just maybe watching the breath go in, go out. You can't hear anything in the whole world. You're just so happy and peaceful, just watching the breath. This is why joy becomes an important part of the meditation. Why I try and give you some joy with a few funny stories and jokes, cheer you up, making you smile in your meditation posture, because that gives you that joy which is a necessary, a vital ingredient for the meditation. Because when you're enjoying watching the breath, that's when you can't hear the sounds. And that's when the breath gets very still and it all disappears. When it disappears, the five senses are disappeared. Please don't get afraid. I can't feel anything. I'm going to die. I've taught meditation for many, many years now. I haven't had a casualty yet. And I don't intend to start now. You are not going to die. I promise you. So don't be afraid. Just let it happen and see what happens next. Because what happens next, for most people when the five senses disappeared, it's like going out at night, here in Jhana Grove. You go out from your room into the forest, and at first you can't see anything. Actually, right now the full moon's up, but if it was like no moon, you go out and at first you can't see anything. You come out from a lit room into the darkness. It takes a while for your pupils to dilate so you can see the forms. So if you stand in the darkness, at first you can't see anything, and after 30 seconds you start to see some silhouettes. After a minute you can see some more shapes, and maybe 2 minutes you've got your night vision and you can see everything around. Now in black and white, but you can still see. Now that's what it's like when you come out of from the body and the five senses into the realm of the mind. At first it's so subtle you think you can't see anything. Just wait for a while and you start to see things. This is what it's like when the five senses disappear. Much more subtle objects. Stay there, be still, don't do anything. And when the mind has enough energy, when it has enough oomph, when it has enough power, that's when you start to see this beautiful light in the mind. We call it the nimitta. This beautiful light appears in the mind. Everybody sees that nimitta sooner or later. If you don't see it now, you will when you're dead. It's true. Haven't you heard all these people with the near-death experiences? Floating out of their body. And then where do they go? To the light. That's what happens. When you're dying, your five senses are stopping, but pretty permanently. In meditation, you stop the five senses temporarily. And that's where you will see the same thing you will see when you die. This beautiful light comes up into the mind. If you don't believe me, just read all these articles. There's hundreds of books now and articles. Get on the internet, near-death experiences, and read what people say. They go into this light and they're just so peaceful and blissful, pure love. It's like now they know what heaven is like. You don't need to die to do that. You can do it here at Jhana Grove today. Special offer, 1 week only. And you see this beautiful light come up. That's nimitta. Number one, don't be afraid. Don't get excited because they're very subtle. And enjoy to the max. You're getting to understand the nature of this mind. The Buddha actually said, this mind is radiant when you haven't got any of the defilements coming onto it. It's called the pabhasara citta, the radiant citta, the radiant mind. Now you're experiencing that beautiful bliss. And this is where you're starting getting into the bliss better than sex. Are you interested? This is really big fun, really enjoyable. But there's more to come. So you get this incredible, brilliant, beautiful light. Now you're in the realm of the mind. And if you check yourself afterwards, when the mind is really, really bright and brilliant, you find you can't feel the body, you can't hear sounds, everything else is, your body has just disappeared for you. Sometimes that light can come up and you can still hear some sounds or feel some feelings in the body, but that's very unstable. Yeah, you can see the mind, but you can see some of the other senses also. You haven't totally dismissed the mind, dismissed the body, sorry. So it's much better to do the meditation properly, let go of the body, the five senses totally, and then you've only got the mind left, and then it grows in intensity and power and bliss and happiness. And you get to know what this mind is. And then you start to merge into that light, and those become the jhanas, the most happiest experience of your existence. And also, there it teaches you a lot about what the Buddha taught. You get heaps of insights from there, and I'll talk about those insights later. But what I really want you to experience some of that, at least experience a nimitta. When the five senses disappear and you see what's left, at least then you will know that these five senses and your body, yeah, they're important, but they're not that necessary. At the very least, when you know what's going to happen to you when you die. That's why I call meditation death training. Death 101, here at Jhana Grove Meditation Center. And you don't get afraid of dying anymore. No, oh yeah, I know what's going to happen. Body's going to disappear, five senses stop, go to this beautiful light, because you can do that now without dying. So it takes away all of the fear of death. It understands what happens to people when they die. It understands the nature of your mind. You know, one thing which is really interesting, when I started getting into these nimittas, you know, sometimes a nimitta was really bright and beautiful and lovely. Other times, you know, it wasn't so bright, and it was like dirty. You know, as if like you got a white cloth, you know, in the dining room, and someone spilt something on it. And it took me a long time to find out what was going on. You know what was going on? If it looked dirty, it was because I made some mistake, I broke a precept or did something wrong or was mean to someone, you know, kicked the dog or the cat or something. And I realized that mind, which I was seeing then, you could see any defilements, that's why it's called defilements. Any bit of anger or ill will or jealousy, then you see it. And you can't hide it, it's right there in front of you. I remember giving a talk like that in the BGF in PJ, Pedaling Jaya, in Malaysia once, and afterwards, this guy, you probably won't know him well, he's a very strong supporter, and he came to see me right afterwards. He said, I need to speak to you, I need to speak to you. I said, why? He said, I saw a nimitta this morning and it was so dirty. Does that mean I've been a bad? Yeah, you have. Come on, tell me what you've been doing. I said, I can't. And it was, he misbehaved. I don't know what he's actually, I can't remember what he'd done now, some sort of misconduct, some selfishness, or getting angry at somebody. And because of that, it actually affects your mind. And you see that when you have a nimitta. But there's a lot of people, and this is most of you, they're such good, kind people. You may not believe that, but trust me, when your nimitta comes up, it's usually very nice and very beautiful. And there's some people who are really pure-hearted. And when they get their nimitta, oh, it's just so beautiful and wonderful. They have a great time. You all know these people. These are people who never say a bad word about anybody. They're always really kind. They're always, very, very accepting and loving. Always ready to do something for you, even if they're busy. Oh, if that's what you need, yeah, I'll do it for you. Those selfless, compassionate, pure-hearted people. When their nimitta comes up, wow, that's incredibly beautiful and powerful. I've seen that many, many times. All these disciples, when they get a nimitta, those ones, they come and say, I saw this incredibly beautiful light. Say, yeah, I know, because you're such a nice person. And you can't ignore that. There you see, actually, you are a nice person after all. A lot of people have so many doubts. They always think, yeah, I'm not pure, I made all these mistakes, I'm a terrible person. Right? Because that's what we're taught to do in our Western world, and also in Singapore now. Always be self-critical. But when you see your nimitta, wow, is that really me? Ooh, that's nice. That really is you. So seeing nimittas for the first time, most of you see beautiful nimittas, and that will convince you that really you are a pure-hearted person after all. And all of those doubts and all those criticisms from others which you've taken on board weren't true. And as you become that pure-hearted being, and you see that, it can really give you lots of joy and happiness. That's why sila, your precepts, generosity, compassion, that's why it works. That's why it's important in all spiritual paths. It really does make you a pure person, a really good person, a kind person, a generous person. It has an instant payoff in the beauty of your heart. And that's what you'll see when you die. That nimitta which comes up, it's a bit too late to deal with it, to make it beautiful when you're dead. But at least you can get a glimpse of it now. And if it comes up in this beautiful mind, because you've been such a kind, forgiving person. Yeah, people have hurt you, but you're not going to hurt them back. Understand that they did those things, I don't know why. And if they did do something to you anyway, good, bad, who knows? And if you've done something you shouldn't have done, come on, give yourself a break. No one is perfect. Sometimes I look at myself and think, oh my goodness, all those bad jokes which I've given over the years, that must really, really, really sort of be bad karma. But no, I've forgiven myself a long time ago for all the bad jokes. In other words, you're kind to yourself, you're generous, and you're compassionate, which means that you have a beautiful mind. And that's what you see. And that's very reassuring. So it shows you where precepts, kindness, compassion come from when you get these beautiful nimitta stages. You learn so much about yourself and this mind and how it works. And also you learn, when that nimitta comes up, a lot of times it's very unstable the first time, simply because it's just a bit powerful and exciting. And then you have the task of how to maintain that nimitta and get it even brighter and brighter. And you always find, like all the other stages of meditation, the best way is to do nothing. Just remain still. Don't move. Because that nimitta is a reflection of you. If you move, the nimitta moves. If you get excited, the nimitta gets excited. If you get afraid, the nimitta gets afraid. It's like looking at yourself in a mirror. If the person who's watching moves, so does the image. So your job is to keep still. Do nothing. Then the nimitta remains motionless, gains in power, and you realize that happiness comes not by doing things, but by resting. Not by wanting things, but by being content. By understanding the nature of happiness and life itself. Third noble truth, letting go, doing nothing, just being still, is the way to deep bliss and happiness and also wisdom. And that becomes our path of meditation. We're learning about these five senses and how to stabilize them and let them go and go to the realm of the mind. Which means when you come back again, just like those people who've had real near-death experiences, 100% common result of those, it changes the whole way they look at their life. I was reading a book just in the Rains retreat. People have these near-death experiences. It's not only they're not afraid of death anymore, but they're not so materialist anymore. They're not so worried about money or career. They're more interested in family, in love, in forgiveness, in doing something to help suffering people in this world. The whole purpose of life changes. And it's really weird, because these aren't spiritual people before they have the near-death experiences. They sure are afterwards. Simply because they get insight, understanding the nature of the mind and the world. You understand your purpose in life. Yeah, you make money. Yeah, you follow a career. But it's not the most important part of your life anymore. Priorities change. And that's called insight, changing your whole worldview. So that's why we meditate for. And it's not that hard. All you have to do is sit down and shut up and do nothing. What can be easier than doing nothing? Actually, it's the hardest thing in the world to do. You know why? It's because you've never done it before. You've always been so active. If you wanted to succeed in anything, you've tried and you've done very well. You've succeeded many times because you put forth the effort. And now I'm saying, go in the opposite direction. Go against the stream of craving. Stop and see what happens. When you don't try, you get everything you want. I'm going to leave you this morning with one of Ajahn Chah's deepest teachings. When I went to his monastery the first year, he would repeat this simile many times. I thought he was crazy. I didn't understand a word of it. Only later on did I realize how wise this was. And it's never been actually printed in any book, and it's a really great shame. I don't know if this is one of my books yet, but maybe I should put it in there, because it's a great saying, or simile. In the first year I was, 1974, 75, I was in Thailand. He was saying that his monastery in the northeast of Thailand, Wat Ba Pong, he said it was a mango orchard planted by the Buddha. What's he talking about? This is a forest in the northeast of Thailand. It's not a mango orchard. But he said it's a mango orchard which was planted by the Buddha. And he said those mango trees are mature, and every branch and twig is dripping with ripe, juicy mangoes. Do you like mangoes? I love mangoes, especially the juicy ones. And he said, you monks are so lucky. You don't have to climb the tree to get the mango. You don't have to throw a stick at the branches to get the mangoes to fall down. You don't even need to shake the tree. All you monks have to do is to sit down quietly, hold out your hand, and a mango will fall into it. That was crazy. I'd seen mango orchards. If you sit on that mango orchard and hold your hand out, your arm will be aching for hours before one falls. If it does fall, knowing your luck, it will fall on your head, not on your hand. It's a crazy idea. But of course, after a while, you realize what he meant. This was meditation, insights, enlightenment. That mango orchard is any monastery or retreat center. The trees are the Dharma, and the Dharma is dripping with the ripe fruits of deep meditation and enlightenment, all the great insights. They're all ripe because that was all planted by the Buddha. And you meditators, no matter where you're from, no matter what gender, how old, how experienced or inexperienced, you don't need to climb the tree. You don't need to throw sticks up at the tree or to shake the tree. And many of you have been doing that for the last couple of days. Climbing up the trees. Shake it. Come on, I want peace. I want peace. Come on, come on. Gimme, 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 gimme. No, said the Buddha. Just sit down and hold out the hand. And beautiful peace will fall right into it. Jhanas, insights, enlightenment. Oh, thank you so much, Buddha. That's the way of meditation. That's what we call letting go, being peaceful. Every time you shake that tree, the mangoes cling on harder. Every time you just open your grasp and let go, more chance of the mango falling in. And I've taught that many times. And people have said, it doesn't work. I've been sitting there for hours with my hand up. No, you haven't. You've been shaking the tree. Say, come on, fall, 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 come on. I've only got another 5 minutes. Come on, fall. That is not letting go. That's doing letting go. Just sit there and give up. Let go. Abandon. Renounce. Sit there absolutely still. Not waiting for something to happen. Waiting in the moment instead. The two types of waiting. Are you waiting for something to happen? If you are, you're called waiting in the future. Instead, wait in the moment, like a waiter waits on the customers in a restaurant, in the moment, looking for what they need right now. Wait on the moment. Don't wait in the future. Then you know how to be still. So that's the talk this morning. Very powerful, very deep. And if you don't get enlightened after this, I give up. No, I won't. I'll try again tomorrow. But anyway, any questions about the talk right now? Okay, if you have any questions, you can write them on a piece of paper, put them in the basket, and this evening they will be answered to the best of my ability with a bit of humor as well. Those of you who are tired, please go to bed and have a nice rest. Those of you who've got energy, just go to bed and have a nice rest. No, just be kind to yourself and learn how to be still. Be kind, happy, still. Then all these things will disappear. And just try that. You close your eyes, sight vanishes. Be still, your body vanishes. Be happy and sound disappears. And after a while you've got nothing left. Just the breath gets very still, beautiful, disappears. Got the mind left. Beautiful lights. Enjoy to the max, but don't move. Don't be agitated. Just carry on being still. When people ask, I got to this stage, what should I do next? That's the most stupid meditation question. What should I do next? There is no next. There's only now. So every time that comes up, what should I do next? Remember, call yourself stupid. Knock yourself on the head. Stupid. What am I doing now? What should I be doing now? Just be kind, be peaceful, be still. And then the mango will fall.